Welcome! I'm Jan Marini, the founder of Jan Marini Skin Research, and this is our first YouTube consultation. I really want these consultations to be educational, but more importantly, I want to inspire you and I want to empower you to use products that will really make a difference with common skin concerns. So let's get started. This is Lisa.
Hi.
So Lisa, do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
I don't mind at all.
Okay. If there was something you could change or improve about your skin, what would it be?
Oh, there's a lot of things. Probably the redness. I have a little bit of hyperpigmentation, and then I've got some new rosacea coming, especially on my right cheek. I also have some deep pores in my nose. And no matter how much I cleanse or exfoliate, that always seems to have like some blackheads that need to be extracted and removed. I think that's pretty much, the texture as well, along with like maybe some fine lines that are starting to appear as I just turned 40. Those are probably the most.
Well, I don't have to ask you your age.
Yeah, I'm 40, fresh and 40.
So fine lines, okay. Mm-hmm. Anything else you
just basically the overall texture and tone of my skin. I've always seen like my friends and family that have really great skin have been like kind of skin envious because I've had pimples, like acne, hyperpigmentation, a little bit of rosacea, and like the deep pores, like I said, in my nose. And so when I see other people's skin looking flawless and clean and like porcelain-like, I get very envious of that. I really would like to try to achieve that.
Now, do you have any issues with acne?
I used to.
Okay.
I used to have really problematic skin. I was actually on 3 rounds of Accutane in my lifetime. I used some major products, including some very famous brands that are out there on the market still, that didn't work. I was told I had surface dryness with an oily skin, and then my sebaceous glands would oversecrete, and then the oil and dirt would get trapped underneath my skin and cause really hard pimples and like these sebaceous, like these I forget the name of
nodules or cysts.
Yes, like underneath, and so.
So, what type of skin do you think you have? Do you think it's normal, combination?
I think it's combination,
dry?
oily.
Okay, combination. Where do you think you're oily?
T-zones for sure.
Okay.
Area, my nose. Yeah, the T-zone.
Do you feel that if you look at your skin during the day that it really does look oily, or is it something where it just maybe looks a little shiny at the end of the day? How do you?
It looks oily.
Okay.
It'll look oily by the end of the day.
So it's definitely combination.
Right.
How do you feel? Do you feel your cheek area is more normal? Do you feel it's dry?
I feel like cheek area is pretty normal. For me. So it still gets a little oily, I would say.
Okay, so let me talk a little bit about some of your concerns. So tell me, when you talk about the redness, and when she mentioned redness, she also then later mentioned the term rosacea. So have you actually been diagnosed with rosacea?
I don't know if it wasn't my dermatologist that told me that I had rosacea. It was like an esthetician.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if they're just broken capillaries or if it's actually rosacea. I'm not sure of the correct terminology in the skin world, but I know that it's red and I don't like it.
So when let's say that you have a glass of wine or spicy food, do you flush and blush? Do you get redder?
I'm usually wearing a lot of makeup, so I can't quite tell. But I think I get a little pink.
Okay.
I noticed here, especially in my early, late 20s, if I would drink a lot, if I would go out and have drinks, the next day I would see red capillaries in my chest area.
Well, actually, with rosacea, commonly you tend to see redness in the cheek area, but it can also be the forehead, the nose, and to a lesser degree, the neck and the chest. Okay, so I'm going to keep dropping this, I just know it. So, when you look in the mirror and you look at the areas where you're red, do you see blood vessels?
I do.
Okay, and those are called telangiectasia, so those are dilated capillaries. And do you notice that sometimes they're worse than other times?
I do, yes.
And do you occasionally get like little papules, like little red bumps in those areas?
I do,
Okay.
yes, I do.
Okay. We're going to talk more about that.
Okay.
So tell me where you think you're hyperpigmented.
Well, it comes and goes, which is interesting to me because I've never done anything to fix it. But it was here. There was a big like it looked like a little butterfly wings on my forehead for a while, and then it left. I don't know how it did that, but I have like a couple little spots like forming. I've noticed one. I think it's on this cheek somewhere. And then it's kind of like more sporadic. It doesn't look like a big thick mask anymore, like where I said I saw it on my forehead. It's kind of like little patches around my face here and there.
So did you, and if you don't mind me saying, Lisa's a new mama.
Yes, I am.
5 weeks ago, and did you notice that it was worse when you were pregnant?
Yes, like with my second child, it was worse. Like I even got this belly mark, like that line on my belly. But with this one, I didn't notice the hyperpigmentation as badly. But I did notice that the pinkness of my skin, especially on my right cheek, was just really, like the little capillaries were really poking out there.
Okay, okay. And you mentioned pores on your nose. Now, do you feel that the follicles on the rest of your face, are you happy with the size of them? Do you feel that you have enlarged follicles?
I'm not happy with the size of them. I feel like...
Is anybody happy with the size of their pores?
I don't think so. So my nose and then right through here, for sure.
So like
and then,
that inner cheek area.
Yep, and I'm noticing like kind of right here, like in between my brows and that are like the most noticeable. But I mean, overall, the texture of and size of the pores.
Where do you think you have fine lines?
Just kind of around here, and then my forehead. I'm starting to get some lines up here, I guess.
So what we call the crow's feet area, nice name, and then forehead, okay. Ever a smoker?
I was, and a long time ago, I lived in Europe, and I used to smoke.
And for like how long?
I would say 10 years, on and off. And I was in the health and wellness industry too, so that's interesting that it's kind of an oxymoron.
Makes a lot of sense.
Right.
How about sunbathing?
Yes.
Mainly as a teenager or adult?
Well, as a teenager, I was out in my backyard often. We had a pool growing up, and then we lived in Europe for a few years, and I took a break because we lived in Germany. It was very cold and not so sunny. But basically just living in California like my whole life and being outside in the sun. And then I do bikini modeling for the past 10 years. And some of the designers, when we're modeling bikinis, wouldn't like us to wear spray tan. So I unfortunately, even though I know it's bad, did the tanning booths for, I want to say the past like 7 years, on and off, like during, the winter time when we were shooting for bikinis. And I noticed that it damaged my skin.
So tell me, currently, what do you use in the morning? What do you wash with?
So I'm pretty basic. Cetaphil soap.
Okay.
Just a regular.
And it's the soap, not the lotion.
No, well, I do the lotion after.
So the Cetaphil soap, but not the Cetaphil lotion cleanser. And then afterwards, you say you do the Cetaphil lotion for like a moisturizer. Okay.
And the one, the oil, the acne prone one.
Okay, the one lotion for acne prone skin. Do you know do you know if it has salicylic acid in it?
I don't think so.
Okay. Do you know if it has anything in it in other words, is there anything specific for acne in it that you're aware of, or is it more just that it's maybe has less oil or something?
I think that's what it is, less oil.
Okay. What do you do after you put on the moisturizer?
I put my makeup on.
Okay. And how about sunscreen?
It has sunscreen in it.
Okay.
A 35 SPF.
So, just so you know, this is good for everybody to know. First of all, one of the things that I say when people say, oh yeah, my sunscreen is in my makeup, I always say, okay, great. I hope that you put a really thick coat on your entire face over your ears, on your mouth, and on your neck, and on your chest. And of course, nobody does that.
Right.
The second issue is that the monograph for sunscreen has been changed. Now, sunscreen is considered an over-the-counter drug, so it's controlled by the FDA, very strictly controlled. And one of the things that's come up is that they can no longer make the same claims for makeup. Now, the fact that something has an SPF factor, that only relates to UVB rays. So UVA rays, which go through your skin like an X-ray, they go through the windshield of your car, they can even penetrate clothing, they are the same intensity all year round, same intensity all day long, and they go into your skin and they damage your DNA and they create all kinds of problems, your rosacea, your pigmentation, fine lines and wrinkles, all of that. So it can have an SPF 100 but not have any UVA protection. So it is so critical that you wear sunscreen all the time. And we're going to talk more about that, particularly with rosacea, because there's a relation between sun exposure and rosacea. Okay, no sunscreen. Then, what do you do at night? Same cleanser?
Same exact thing.
So just the cleanser and the moisturizer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then I have a little cream that I dab around my eyes. It's like the firming cream from another company.
And you know the brand of the eye cream that you dab around?
Eminence.
Oh, Eminence? Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's natural.
Okay, so now let me talk a little bit about some of your concerns. So first of all, let's talk about the rosacea. Rosacea affects over 16 million Americans, and the numbers are growing, and it's probably really underreported because a lot of people look at their skin and it might be red, but they also have maybe bumps on their cheeks that look like acne. They just think they have adult acne. Mm-hmm. And really, it is one of the fastest growing skin issues, and typically the onset of it is between the ages of 30 and 50, but it can happen when you're younger. And it is much more prevalent in women than it is in men, and it's a disease of vasomotor instability. And it's a chronic inflammatory disorder. So your blood vessels are designed to expand and contract. In a rosacea, they're compromised, and so you see telangiectasias, or these dilated capillaries. Now, in addition to that, it's a disease of reactivity. Oftentimes, it is incorrectly looked at as a very sensitive skin. You could have very sensitive skin and not have rosacea. You could have rosacea and not necessarily be sensitive to skincare. And it's a disease of reactivity because it's reactive to various kinds of triggers. So triggers could be alcohol, triggers could be spicy food, sun exposure, sitting in a stuffy room, maybe not getting enough sleep. It's different for different people. There's certain commonalities with rosacea, but some people react to avocados or berries. Mm-hmm. And like you said, if you have alcohol and then you notice that the next day even, her chest is red. So these are all triggers. And one of the reasons that you have this trigger, what triggers it, is that there's all kinds of information on rosacea, a lot of misconceptions, and there's all kinds of theories about whether it's edemodexamide and on and on and on. But what we do know is that in rosacea, you produce an inflammatory protein. Now, everybody produces it. It's actually a good protein. It's known as cathelicidin. And that protein helps you to heal if you wound yourself or you burn yourself. But in rosacea, if you're producing it all the time, if you're producing it for no reason, then your skin is very reactive. And maybe it could be that many of these sort of trigger points cause you to produce this protein. So what you have to do is you have to do things that kind of calm everything down. And so it reduces that. And that's the important thing. And interestingly enough, things that you would normally think, oh, no, you wouldn't want to use that on rosacea, are things that are used in the medical community more than anything else for rosacea. And that's things like glycolic acid, salicylic acid. Plus, we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but we actually make a product for rosacea, which addresses those factors. And the nice thing about it is, because it has azelaic acid in it, it's also great for resurfacing, and it's also great for some of the other issues that you've talked about. Okay, now, hyperpigmentation. I'm going to talk about that for a moment, but I think that that's not necessarily going to be our primary target, because I think secondarily we're going to brighten your skin up a lot. And then later, if we need to come back and address it further, we can. But with hyperpigmentation, there's so many different factors. And every single person on the face of the earth after the age of 35 is going to have abnormal pigmentation. Now, maybe it won't be in your face. It could be someplace else on the body. But even if you don't see brown spots on the face, you have what's called background pigmentation. Look at a picture of somebody, let's say when they're 20, and look at a picture of them when they're 35 or 40. Even though they may not have obvious pigmentation, there's just a difference in the clarity. There's a difference in that brightness and that translucent look. So this is a huge issue that is just growing so rapidly. And typically, when you address pigmentation, you use something called tyrosinase inhibitors. So tyrosinase is what goes into, it's one of the things that goes into the manufacture of pigment. And sometimes you just throw pigment off unevenly. It can be due to sun exposure, it can be due to your genetics, it can be due to environmental factors, all kinds of things. I mean, there's some people who sit in a hot car and they pigment. Now, I have to tell you, I have a lot of issues that I address all the time. Pigmentation just doesn't happen to be one of them. But there are other people that don't pigment much. And for example, you can have somebody who's a redhead with freckles, and they can go out in the sun all the time, and all they do is burn and never tan. So there's a lot of genetics in there. And you actually produce a hormone that we all pretty much have the same amount of that hormone, but it plays a significant role in how you genetically and environmentally react to the sun. So if you have a lot of pigment in your skin, you might react differently than someone who doesn't. And a lot of it has to do with that hormone, but you have more of it when you're pregnant, more of it when you're on birth control pills.
Okay.
So that also plays a role in melasma. So one of the things that we want to do with pigment is we want to address those factors. Not just working with things that limit or lessen tyrosinase, but we want to brighten the skin. But that's something that we may get to a little bit later. And the other thing that I want to talk about for a second is the fine lines. So we have two types of fine lines. First of all, when you look in the mirror and you see things that you think, oh, everybody's just going to get eventually little fine lines, and we're going to get pigmentation, and we're going to get, uneven texture and all the things that we think are just inevitable. 90 to 95% of what you perceive as inevitable aging is sun exposure. Yes. Most of which happen before the age of 10. Probably at least 50% by the time you're 20. It's programmed into your DNA. It takes 10, 20, 30 years to show up. So I hate to tell you, the best is yet to come.
Great.
So, there's just all kinds of things that go into that. I mean, it's the fine lines, it's the wrinkles, it's the loss of volume, it's just all kinds of different things. So, that's one type of line and wrinkle. The second one is what's called dynamic muscle movement. Now, dynamic muscle movement, you could live in a cave, never have any sun exposure, and just smiling and making expression lines, you etch them into your muscle. And typically where you get dynamic muscle movement, the lines from that, so it's like a crease in the muscle and then it shows up on the skin. Corners of the eyes, between the eyebrows, forehead. That's Botox.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying, oh yeah, run out, everybody's got to run out and get Botox. I mean, that's a personal decision.
Sure.
We can soften that, but you're never really going to remove it. If anybody tells you that, that's not true. Don't listen to that. No. Bad. Bad. Okay. So, and not only that, but you hear about products every so often. Botox in a bottle, better than Botox. If it really worked like Botox, you would paralyze your entire face, and she would be sitting here and she'd be drooling right now. Okay, so with that said, again, we can soften that. Now, really, a lot of the things you're talking about fall under the heading of skin rejuvenation. And skin rejuvenation, oftentimes people think of that as, well, that's fine lines, wrinkles, etc. The way I look at skin rejuvenation, it really is addressing all the common skin concerns. It could be fine lines, wrinkles, it's texture, it's pores, it's mild to moderate acne, it's rosacea. It's all the things that we want to get rid of, because you said you envy your friends when you look at their skin and oh my God, they look so porcelain.
Right.
I like to talk about it being sort of like the red carpet look. You see the celebrity walking down the red carpet, you know they're wearing makeup, but they look like they're not, and they just glow, and their skin looks so even and looks so beautiful. So really that's what we want to kind of get to. And one of the number one things that you do for that is something called resurfacing. Now, resurfacing is a term that I use that addresses mild to moderate acne, it addresses rosacea, large pores, fine lines, textural changes, all those things, so that hopefully we can give the skin that really much more refined, glowing texture. And one of the ways that we do that is we use a combination of acids. Now, the good news about this, and one of the things I'm going to recommend for you, this is literally everyone, I recommend this for everyone, it's the skincare management system. This is the one for normal convalescent. So, I'm oftentimes asked, well, how could we all be on the same system but have different issues? Well, it's because, for example, one of the products in there is something called BioClear. Now, BioClear is a combination of glycolic, salicylic, and azelaic acid. Azelaic acid is actually sold by prescription for rosacea. It's sold by prescription for acne. It's one of the best resurfacing agents I have ever seen for fine lines, superficial kinds of things. And when you put together with glycolic and salicylic, it also has the ability to get down in the follicle because of the small molecular weight. It breaks up follicular retention. So pores are not like trap doors. You can't just open and close them. But what you can do is when you get rid of the retention, they tend to look much, much smaller and much more refined. Also, medically, all those three ingredients have been shown to stimulate lots of collagen. One of the things that happens as we age with pores is that 80% of your dermis is collagen. And collagen acts like a girdle around those pores, so it keeps them nice and taut. And when that girdle starts to the collagen starts to get compromised and that girdle starts to get flabby, your follicles can kind of open. Well, if we can get the retentive matter out of there, if we can kind of tighten that girdle, then your skin just looks so refined. And to give you an example, I'm a 2-time Accutane failure.
Oh. Yeah,
so she mentioned she'd been on Accutane 3 times. I'm a 2-time Accutane failure. And I believe in Accutane. I think it is an incredible drug for people. It's a miracle worker. But sometimes people fail Accutane, or it works for a while and
then
go
it comes
back on
back.
it.
Right.
Exactly.
It looks fabulous when I was on it. There was also a lot of side effects.
Yes.
Negative side effects. But I mean, the positive thing was my skin was beautifully clear. But then, sure enough, after about a year, everything came back and it's worse.
And there's a reason for that, and I might get into that in a moment as well. But I had very large pores. Now she's sitting here looking at me, but you don't really.
You have none. Yes.
Okay. So you really can. Believe me, they're there, but you can make them look like they've disappeared. That's.
Can you do that to me?
We're gonna do our best.
I'm going to love you forever.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So in that skincare management system, hold that up again. So there's going to be a glycolic acid cleanser, and it's actually very much like the creamy Cetaphil cleanser. It's very, very gentle, but it's very thorough because you can use the best cleanser in the world. They don't get down into your follicle, but with glycolic acid, it can actually penetrate down in. So it's going to be a glycolic acid cleanser, and there's also something in there known as a lipid-soluble C product. And it's highly anti-inflammatory. It's really great for redness. It's really great for anything that's, even acne, which is an inflammatory disorder. But it also helps the face to look a lot more contoured. Kind of gives it that lifted appearance. And then the BioClear that I mentioned. And then the hydrator in this product is something called Transformation. And it's got a number of technologies in there, but one of them is transferrin growth factor beta-1, which is a growth factor that has superb anti-aging benefits, along with something that I have a patent on called thymosin beta-4, which has superb anti-aging benefits. And finally, and you're going to love this, there's an SPF 33. I almost said 30 tonight. SPF 33. The 3 is important. And the SPF 33 is such a cult favorite because it's got an oil capture system in it. And any place where you're oily, it absorbs the oil.
And so I won't look shiny at the end of the
But
day?
it doesn't absorb the actives. It doesn't absorb moisture. But where you're dry, it makes you feel really soft and silky.
Nice.
33% of Americans wear sunscreen all the time. That's a low number, and the number's dropping. And you know why? It's not because we're stupid. It's because we don't like the feel of sunscreen. And
Right.
I wear this even when I'm indoors because I just love, my skin feels so much better with it on.
Right. For years, I didn't wear sunscreen because it would make me I felt a little
Yes.
extra oily.
Yes.
And then I was afraid that my skin would break out more because I was getting that cystic acne, and I was like, I'm not going to put the sunscreen on my face because in fear that I would have these big, ugly, pimples on my face.
That is so common. And today, I think that manufacturers are very conscious in many cases of using ingredients that could be comedogenic or acnegenic, but sometimes you still run across things, particularly in sunscreens, that can really aggravate acne. So I understand exactly what you're saying. Okay, so the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to also give you the product that is known as, where is it here? Rosalieve, right here. That's the one that's going to be specifically for the rosacea. I'm going to throw in a few extra ancillary things, and I'm going to throw in our luminant eye gel for you. Okay. And the other thing that I also want to think about as we move forward is so many cases, if you've got still a little bit of leftover acne or you're breaking out, the system will clear it up. But if that continues, because there's no reason why you can't have complete, total clearing, then we're going to move into another product that we're going to put you on called Duality. Okay?
I'm getting so excited right now. I'm trying to contain myself.
Oh, that's fine. You can get excited.
I'm so excited.
But it is exciting. It really is exciting. And I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. There's a couple of other little things that I think for the future. We have something called Cleanzyme and Skinzyme, which is a proteolytic enzyme that digests dead and diseased tissue, but it can't hurt normal living tissue. So it's like it exfoliates everything, but it doesn't scratch the skin, make microscopic tears in the skin, and when you look in the mirror afterwards, you just go, oh my gosh, my skin just looks like glass. So that's something, but we want to get you acclimated and kind of get a baseline, see where you're at this point, okay? But we're going to monitor you, and we'll kind of, as we go along, we can kind of see, well, what is the next step, what do we need to do? Because I will tell you, I always say this to people, a month from now, if you say to me, oh my gosh, my skin's the best it's ever been in my life, I can make it better.
Oh, wow.
So
that's great. That's awesome. It's like a dream come true. Like literally, because, if you don't have problematic skin, you don't realize like how it can hurt your self-confidence and just the way you see the world. I mean, it's awful. Like if you don't feel good about your skin. And so to hear you say that, I'm like extremely excited.
Well, it makes me feel really good. Okay, so one thing I want to mention really quick before we close is I want to talk for just a second about the acne. Acne in adults, in females, is really, really different than it is in teenagers. Now, lots of times we talk about acne as being hormonal. And yes, it has a hormonal component, but if it's just hormonal, why is it about 2 to 3% of teenagers never have any acne? I mean, do they not have hormones? Can't they'll never be able to procreate? So there's a lot more to it than that. But in adults, so many times I hear people say, well, I really didn't have acne as a teenager, and then it started when I was in my 20s, 30s, and beyond. Or I had some acne, but it kind of went away or it got better. And then when I was in my 20s, 30s, or 40s, it came back. And this time it's on my chin. It's on my jawline. And whether you get it all the time or you get it once a month, oftentimes it can be the nodular cystic type of acne. So let me kind of tell you what's happening and what's very different from that with teenage acne. So in your follicle, you have certain enzymes. They're harmless. Isozyme type 1 and isozyme type 2, you have them in your hair follicles as well. And it's known collectively as 5A reductase. Outside your follicle, you have hormones. We're going to put this right here. You have hormones. You have estrogen, you have testosterone, you have progesterone. Women have almost as much testosterone as men, but our testosterone is bound by proteins. It's like you have a sack around them. You don't get a beard, you don't get a deep voice, hair on your chest. What happens in many women, and a very high percentage, and some doctors will say it's maybe 90 to 95% of females that get adult acne, is that they have a testosterone sensitivity or a little free testosterone. What happens is when those two get together, they meet each other, this free testosterone or testosterone sensitivity with those enzymes in the follicle, they meet each other and they form dihydrotestosterone. It is like the most aggressive form of testosterone, and it's like instant acne, and generally it's in this area. It can be anywhere, but it's usually in that area, and it's very stubborn. Go on antibiotics, maybe it goes away, comes back. Go on Accutane, goes away, comes back. Now, in many cases, I want to tell you, been very, very successful if we need to go to the duality product in being able to address that, because it addresses all kinds of different factors.
And I have to tell you, I get a few, I mean, this is so embarrassing to say, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I get like these little coarse hairs on my chin now. And it's been happening for like 10 years. And I mean, I will pluck them out, but I mean, they're like coarse.
Well, it goes along with that. Now, I think most females, we tend to notice as we get older, we get more hair on the chin and we get more hair on the upper lip. However, it kind of goes along a little bit with that sensitivity. So if, for example, you were somebody who we couldn't get completely clear with duality, what I would recommend is that you see either your primary physician or your dermatologist, and there is something that you can go on that is not an antibiotic. It's very different. Believe it or not, it is a diuretic. It's been around, it's prescription, it's been around probably 50 years. It's for high blood pressure, congestive heart failure. It's called spironolactone. Spironolactone, S as in Sam, P as in Peter, IROLACTONE. Now what that does, in this case, it's very low dose. So you're not taking 500 or 1,000 milligrams a day, maybe 50 to 150. And what it does is it simply puts up a block so those two can't get together. And literally, in 99.9% of the time, it's complete total clearing. It's a miracle. The other thing that it does is that people notice that the hair on their face softens up. They have a lot less of it, or they don't get the big whiskery kinds of things. And the other thing is that sometimes when people are dealing with adult acne, they're also going through, maybe getting toward perimenopause or hair thinning. You know, hair thinning happens to 50% of women's female pattern baldness, which is just diffuse hair thinning. And so when you address this in facial skin, you're also addressing it up here. So oftentimes they find that their hair grows back, or they get thicker hair. So something to keep in mind that we can keep in mind, and you could talk to your physician about if you need to. Because there's so many options out there. It's just really understanding what's available to you, because there's so many choices. How do you know what to do?
I didn't even ever think to mention that to my physician. I just thought it was something that was just happening. That couldn't be helped.
So anyway, now do you have any questions for me?
Not really any questions that we haven't discussed already. I am very excited about seeing if we can make my face look a little more bright, vibrant and clear and less, ruddy and less with the little fine lines and those pores and redness. I'm extremely excited, like what you've talked about today with the skincare products, and I really can't wait to see if this works for me.
Well, I really think that we can make a huge difference. Now, one of the things I want to say about rosacea, I can line 10 people up, 9 of them will do really well, and then there's number 10 that I don't care what you do, it's a very complex disorder. But in general, we can really get a much more consistent appearance. And part of it is going to be kind of having to manage your triggers. So, for example, if you know red wine is a trigger, if you have a glass of red wine on Saturday night, you might look fine the next day, but Sunday and Monday and Tuesday, all of a sudden your skin flares up. So those are the kinds of things that you have to manage, really spicy food. Things that you find over time can be a trigger. And if you can do that, and also with some of the topicals we're doing, I think it's going to make a huge difference. Huge.
Great.
Okay, well, if you don't have any other questions, then thank you so much for listening. And please subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye.